What's up, heathens? How y'all doing? I'm the Godless engineer, and I critically analyze apologist claims to give you the best arguments and information so that you can stand up and use your voice. Today, we're taking a look at a clip from The Line. If you would like to, please go down below to the description and find a link to The Line and to the live stream that this video clip is coming from. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing to The Line. I host over on The Line at least twice a month, so I hope to see you over there. All right. Let's get on into the clip. If you're ready to fuck around and find out what this crazy ass caller's talking about today, then please stay tuned.
William, I don't think you could possibly be more insufferable than our last caller. So, William, you are on the line with Jimmy and John. Please don't take that as a challenge. You are calling as a theist who is starting off with a buzzword that I usually see as a giant red flag, but I'll see what you got.
Yeah, I hate when people talk about quantum physics because it's so mysterious. Oh, by the way, John, we've talked a little bit before about did Jesus exist, and I wanted to have a little debate with you, but you had a poker tournament. How did you do at the poker tournament?
Oh, I never do well at the poker tournaments. I don't think that I made it in the money. I doubt that I did. I don't remember when it was, but very tumultuous time for me this particular season. I'm hoping that the fall season is going to be better for me.
I tell you, I was a failed apocalyptic poker player, and I was in Vegas at the one of the poker rooms. The guy goes, "There's like 50 people." He goes, "I can count on my hand the number of people that make money." Apparently 85% of the people lose at poker. It's just remarkable. It's a great example of the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Excellent. I'm going to beg you to move on now. Thank you.
But anyway, let's start with the fine structure constant. Richard Feynman, the great physicist, said every physicist should put this number, which is 1 over 137, on a board and worry. Are you guys worried?
No.
Okay.
Worried about what?
I mean, the statement was that every physicist should do it. So already I am excluded from the desire to worry.
Well, I was an atheist a few weeks ago. I've just converted to theism. And a lot of it is because of this.
No one's perfect.
Yeah,
that was a tease.
I mean, it feels weird, believe me. But things like this fine structure constant, if it's 4% off, you don't get chemistry, you don't get carbon. And actually,
as we know it,
carbon.
But
we don't get those
William,
things as we know them.
Yeah, for one, as we know them, but also, what if it's just 3% off? What if it's 3.9999 repeating off like that? So, what if it's 2.98 repeating off, or 2.987565434456 whatever in the fuck percent off? Like, you understand how like there's an infinite amount of numbers in which we could pull out here for it to be off by and still get chemistry. So. I guess,
and we don't know what number of samples we get to apply it to. It's literally like 4% is a crazy high number. I'm like, give me something that's like 0.000 freckle on the ass 0.001% chance. And have I lost signal? I seem to be frozen.
No. I'm just listening. Here's another one. This is the one that really threw me for a loop. Have you heard of the strong force constant? You know, there's 4 forces in there.
The strong and weak nuclear forces.
Yes, the strong.
I think something's gone wrong.
Force.
Okay.
All right, can you not hear me?
No.
Can people hear me?
Yes,
we can all hear you, and everyone else can hear each other, Jimmy. So something's, I don't know what's wrong.
Do I look okay?
Yes. Can you hear me?
All right, hang on one second. Let me hit the recap.
That happened to me a second ago too.
Very strange.
All right, are we back? I think I'm good. For some reason I had to reconnect.
Okay.
Just my side was being crazy. Yeah, I do.
Right.
We don't know what the sample size numbers are either, and so we also don't know about, all we know is that we're here and we're observing a universe that we're in. So our universe apparently can meet whatever it needs to meet for us to exist. But we don't know if other universes exist and then how many there are. So whatever infinitely small percentage number you might be able to come up with, I don't know that there aren't that many attempts at universes out there, or that we aren't in a cycle of attempts. And it wasn't until one of the things that would have we don't know any of these things. So people have been trying to make these like, oh my goodness, here's a small percentage likelihood number. And they're reading it after the fact as though you're starting from nothing and you want to eventually hit that. And whatever odds number you can literally write on a piece of paper and come up with something yourself, that the chances of you coming up with that number will be less than the chances of any of these other things you'll present. And yet that number will be on the page.
Right. Now, the two physicists that have converted to me, Luke Barnes and Michael Strauss. Let me just go through this real quick with the strong nuclear force. If it's 2% stronger, then you get the periodic table, but you don't get hydrogen. And if hydrogen is not there, obviously stars won't burn. You won't get the carbon from the supernova explosion. If it's 5% weaker, you don't get the periodic table. You just get hydrogen protons just bumping into each other. So
hey, William. William, if the freckle on Jimmy's ass isn't in the exact spot, hydrogen doesn't form. Did you know that?
Or you might think it's my dad. That's where his freckle is. Like the thing that's very frustrating about what I just told you, William, is you then proceeded to continue with a line of statements as though I hadn't just said why these aren't compelling. No. This isn't compelling information.
That is an excellent apologetic, and totally, I'm with you 100%. And other people have used the multiverse as a good explanation. This is just me personally. Hold on. We're not using the multiverse though.
So literally, we're describing the gaps, and that we're not saying therefore God like you are.
Right, and I respect that. It's just, let me ask you the question. Okay, you have this strong nuclear force where you have quarks within the protons and neutrons. These quarks have to be held together by gluons. And you have the, obviously the quarks are positive, so the protons are positive, so they're repelling each other. So my question is, how does this strong nuclear force come about by chance? That's what really threw me.
What does the word chance even mean? We literally use, okay, first of all, demonstrate that we're not in a deterministic universe. Because if we're not, there's nothing by chance. I don't believe in chance. As far as at least I have no idea if chance existed before the universe, but look within the universe. What escapes some sort of biological or chemical or physical process? Truly, even us making a decision, we now know that neurons and things firing in your brain and stuff, you actually make the decision before you acknowledge that you've made the decision, that these are things that are all following. So when you say chance, you're saying unlikely from a base set. Meanwhile, everything which does actually happen actually had a 100% chance of happening. The only thing of if you spun a thing and you spin the wheel and there's 100 slots on it, sure. From the outside, you go with 100 slots. That means you have a 1% chance on landing in a particular number. However, from the universe's computer that knows everything's perspective, if you put your hand at this location, spin with this amount of force on a planet with this amount of gravity, with this, literally that percentage of if you're aiming for the number 5 gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until it is 100% because you know every factor going into it. Chance, when you say these things happening by chance, I don't know. For all I know, there is a multiverse with infinite number of universes, and yet they are all the exact same as ours and have all the same chemistry and all. They have you and me and the freckles in the same damn place. We don't know any of these things because you're describing chance when chance doesn't in any practical way exist, unless somehow quantum particles truly exist via chance, which does not seem to actually be the product of science. But whenever people bring up quantum physics, this is where these kinds of bullshit things come in. Chance doesn't actually in any reasonable way exist. So when you're saying chance, you're saying with all of the factors that I understand, this would only happen as long as you don't deviate from this number of percentage. But what are the quote unquote chances it would deviate? Well, we know in our universe, if you have all of the information, it's 0%. But we don't know what all of that information is to actually make that case. So we're only using it with the limited information we have. The concept of chance isn't a real, it's a human thing that we like because we don't know. And yet, if you were an adequate robot, you could walk up to you guys were talking about gambling, going to a casino, any of those things where you have to spin it, and you could always land on the same thing you wanted to every single time.
Right. I think
Right.
a good principle for you to sort of, I guess, ponder on this topic would be the weak anthropic principle. The best example of that is Douglas Adams' puddle analogy. Have you heard of that?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
No,
I mean,
puddle
like we're
just perfect for me, isn't it? Just a beautiful puddle, it just was made for me.
Right.
Of course.
Yeah. So the fact that we are here to even question like the weak and nuclear forces and all this other stuff, I mean, that's basically life that has been shaped by the universe that it exists within, questioning why that universe has to exist that way and thinking that the universe was fine-tuned for that particular kind of life, when in reality life is shaped by the universe that it develops in. Now I'm wondering, as another example of what Jimmy was just talking about here as far as chance goes, can you actually tell me like if infinity is greater than infinity? Like there is nuance here. Well, there is nuance here in like large infinities versus small infinities. But like when we're comparing these numbers, as I said before, there's an infinite amount of numbers that could be contained within that 4% that you're talking about. Just like there's also an infinite amount of numbers, amount of values that in the entire spectrum that it could be that the weak and nuclear forces could be comprised of. But I guess what I'm trying to look at is like, well, we're really just comparing one infinity to another infinity, and I just don't see a big difference. But like I get that you're trying to make the 4% be like, or whatever numbers for the weak and nuclear forces. You're trying to use those small numbers, that small little wiggle room that it has to be like, oh, it's improbable that it would have, come about by quote unquote chance. But really what you're doing is comparing one infinity to another infinity.
Well, that could be. It's just, here's my problem, and it's kind of a universal problem. It's called the layman's dilemma. To really understand the existence of God, you really need to understand geology, biology, physics, chemistry, Hebrew, Greek. It just, so many things impact this question.
Which God?
Well, how about the Yahweh, God of the Bible?
Well, the God of the Bible does not ask. In fact, the God of the Bible says quite to the contrary in multiple places, that he's giving, you lack wisdom, he will give it to you liberally and withholdeth not. So the God of the Bible, if you're going to believe in the God of the Bible, that it's that hard to get an understanding that the God of the Bible exists, and yet this alleged God is saying it's actually super duper easy. Is Yahweh the God you've adopted?
No. I mean, obviously, the Bible is very problematic with the genocide and fanicidal, God of the Bible.
Do you believe if there was adequate reason to believe in God, people who work at this channel on this debate, and we were aware of it could be articulated to us, that we would, are there hosts here that you think would just be like, no, fuck that, I'm still not going to believe it because I don't want to believe it? Or do you think that, I'm mostly asking, do you trust the lineup of hosts we have here, that their skepticism is consistent and given an adequate reason, they would believe?
Well, absolutely. But let me give you one better. John Carroll,
Well,
who is an atheist.
I'd rather, William, I'd really rather go my way than your better way. We can do yours after mine, but I'd really rather go with mine. I'm curious.
I'm sure your hosts, I've just talked to one, are very skeptical, very well,
right.
Read and so forth. And yes, they.
So I'm curious why you would make an appeal to quantum physics as a thing that is the thing that it seems to have converted you to theism. Acknowledge that you believe that we're consistent here, and given good enough reason, we would. And that are you not aware we have an actual PhD physicist on staff that you could call and go, hey, is this not good enough reason? And if you are correct, you're going to get the guy. You're going to convert him on the spot. I trust him. Do you know who Dr. Aaron Adair is? Why not call the physicist about the point with your quantum physics?
Well,
why not call him?
No, great point. And I would love to do that. But here's the other thing that bothers me is the DNA enigma. You have the nucleotides on the bases. It's not the chemical makeup of the adenine, guanine, cytosine, those nucleotides. It's the arrangement. It's the information in the DNA molecule that determines the assembly of proteins. So again, what's the likelihood that would
100%.
evolve by chance?
100% is the likelihood. And that not only is that not, now we're getting into like some of the stuff I went to college for, but again, tomorrow you can call an evolutionary biologist who's a couple masters and I think on their way to a PhD in at this point, and you could have that exact same conversation with them. But the odds are literally 100% because what you are describing right now is what looks very complex and incredible. Some of the beauty to it is that it is actually so simple that we can use just these 4 letters in repetition to describe all of them, but is also coming from billions of years. And it's wild that that people are sitting here going and thinking like, even if you only added 1 grain of sand, every 1,000 years, after billions of years, you've built a castle. I hope that's true. Someone's going to go do the math and be like, it'd be a small castle, but anyway, it's not that impressive of a thing to anybody if you actually can grasp the concept of 3.5 billion years, which in a literal sense is impossible, but you can do the math and go, yeah, that's pretty incredible. And it's great that we have this, but it didn't, when you say poof into existence, you didn't say poof, but when you say by chance is literally not how it happened. Chemistry is literally how it happened. Like the laws the molecules are following are physics, and biology is a description of how what the products of those things together have done. And there is no chance. And it actually isn't that much more impressive that rocks in space are for the most part staying together instead of just blowing off into whatever. Everything has that level of, wow, it's crazy that works. We're here alive to observe it because it works. And as John already mentioned, you're still saying, I'm really impressed that as water, I fit into this puddle hole. And so God must exist, even though you have no frame of reference of other puddle holes around you, if there are any puddle holes around you, of whether or not there was ever another type of shape a puddle hole could be. Maybe there isn't. Maybe all puddle holes, in the respect to our metaphor here, have to all be the same shape, but we simply don't know. And to go from atheist to theist means you are now making a belief claim in something that you are demonstrating you definitely don't know.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I'm behind the gun. And this doesn't, once you become a theist, it doesn't answer all the questions. For example, the first prokaryotic cell without a nucleus came about 3.5 billion years ago. It takes a billion years, 2.5 or to 2.5 million years, to get the first eukaryotic cell with a nucleus. So my question to my fellow theists now is, why would God take a billion years to get a nucleus in a cell? Do you guys got an answer?
How would I answer a question that starts with why with God as an atheist?
Well, I mean, put yourself in their position, because they've never given me an answer.
Because I really want to bang
Well, I
my
still have-
sister. I don't know. Like that seems to be as consistent as a theistic response as any of the others.
Well,
and here's the other
guess
thing. It takes
trying to
Go ahead.
well, I guess trying to do an internal critique of, let's say, Christianity. You would think that an omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient God that is unrestricted by anything would just be able to snap his fingers and like create stuff, which is why the Bible starts out with God speaking, stuff into existence like an incantation. So, I mean, if you're asking, I feel like asking two atheists, hey, why didn't God do a thing? We're just going to be like, yeah, why didn't he do that thing? He could have easily done that thing. So it makes no sense for God to have to need evolution and billions of years in order for that thing to happen. It makes sense if God would just snap his fingers and twiddle his dick in order for it to come into existence. Like, I mean, I guess my entire point in this is that it's pointless.
The story would have been more believable if I'm not saying you lied about the story, but the story to me, I was more predicting was going to go, or should have gone like, so I asked my fellow theists this, but then they figured out I was an imposter and only pretending to be a theist because asking such a challenging question is not something we do of ourselves.
Well, it's just like the Cambrian 540 million years ago, where all the major phyla of the chordates, the echinoderms, just kind of suddenly appear. And I know there's ediacaran precursors and so forth, but still, you get some major phyla just kind of suddenly appearing.
Suddenly on scales of millions of years is not quite suddenly. Suddenly, as we're looking back at against a cosmic calendar.
And I just want to point out, I just want to point out that whole thing being like amazing or whatnot would also have to entail like there just being no fossils previous to that, and then it's like boom, fossils. I mean, we could still explain that, but I mean, there are fossils that predate the Cambrian explosion, and the fact that fossils. Right, but what I'm saying is that for your point to carry more weight and to be more convincing, I feel like there would just have to be like no fossils, and then it's like boom, full ass body plans and all this other stuff. Like that's normally how it's presented, and that's just not what happens or what has happened. But also, like fossils are incredibly hard to make, and when you're talking about body plans that are not exactly conducive, to making fossils, you're going to have a hard time finding fossils for those kind of things, especially, the farther back you go.
You're absolutely right, John. And another question, just bear with me, is I asked Foz with reasons to believe, Hugh Ross's big thing. I said, if man is the crowning achievement of God's plan, why in the world did he wait till 99% of time is gone? I mean, because the first Homo sapien was William, years ago.
I want your challenges to us. I don't want to hear how you're challenging other theists when you're sitting there going like, but those are the guys I agree with. This is
what I'm saying.
Like, yes, good question to ask them, because it seems really stupid with a lot of that knowledge to sit there and go, I think there's probably a guy, and but by the way, he cares if you touch yourself. So what I want to know is, maybe you don't believe in the guy who cares if I touch myself, but why do you believe in the guy? And it seems to be simply that you have spent 22 minutes going, incredulity is a fucked up, like it really fucks with me. And to me, I would rather take all of these I don't knows and have a 3-letter word, despite the fact that it makes the answer much more complicated. Saying it is 1 syllable and it's super easy.
Right. I still have questions and dilemmas, is I guess what I'm trying to communicate. But I just feel that it's just one, big step, one big hurdle, like the charge of the quark has to be a certain amount. The spin, it's just, why is there 2 up quarks, 1 down quark, and a proton, and 1 up quark? I mean, It just seems that
why?
so many things are
William,
so unlikely.
William, those are great questions that you could probably ask a physicist or whatnot, as far as like getting real answers to it, or actually pose that to like your preacher or something like that. Maybe we could shift the conversation away from like you complaining about the different inconsistencies with the religious worldview. Maybe you could explain to us why you still believe in God despite all of these questions that you have.
It was
I think
only
he
been
said,
2 weeks, so it's the thing is,
it's the gaps.
The evidence has just piled up with the DNA and the Enigma.
No, sir. You don't get to use the word evidence just to be whatever you want. The evidence that God exists is not, I don't have a simpler explanation, even though these things may have explanations. I don't have a simple 3-letter explanation. Therefore, it is evidence that that answer is correct. That's not evidence for God. It's evidence for a missing answer. You are literally just describing God of the gaps, William. And I'm sitting here going,
obviously.
So why did God create quarks? How did he create quarks? Because if we're going to sit back and go, okay, sure, it has to be God. Now let's start asking questions about that God. Is God a natural force with access to incredible technology, or is he a supernatural God?
Right. I mean, the whole...
No, not right. What's the answer, William? Stop agreeing with me. You can't say yes and agree time after time and then still say you're a theist.
Well, it's only been 2 weeks. I'm trying to...
Right, and right now you're just focused and going, oh man, nuclear force, God, all right, I can get up. And you're not letting yourself go like, God, okay, and then what would the questions about God be? Because the questions about God become much more, you're literally describing questions that haven't been answered and finding comfort in an answer that can't be falsified, that couldn't be answered. That the same question you're asking, why is nuclear force this way? You literally can't answer the question of why did God make nuclear force that way? Why would a God want to? Why would a God have wants at all? Why would you, well, these are questions I can never answer, so I can just let them go out into the void where God may or may not be. But then the questions that are just unanswered here, and some of your questions get super undermined by what will be likely future scientific, with some questions we don't know if we'll ever answer. But if we discover life is in the universe and it's plentiful, everything you're saying about what the odds are goes way out the fucking window, because it might be that life basically just pops up whenever the conditions for it present itself, but the universe is so spread out it was harder to find. Like you're hedging, you're setting yourself down on like you're doing what everybody does. Here are the gaps that I'm filling with God, even though those gaps are going to close over time, but it'll never close completely. So I'll always have a place to live with my 3 letters in the freckle on Jimmy's ass. It's pointless, man.
Well, and like I said, we have 200 trillion or 200 billion galaxies, each containing 200 billion stars. They've said there's as many stars as there are grains of sand in all the beaches of the world.
I feel like I'm talking to a science fortune cookie or a popsicle stick with a fun fact of the day. Yes, all of these numbers are amazing. How many of those galaxies how many other solar systems have we actually fully investigated whether or not life is present in any of them? Solar systems. How many solar systems total have we investigated?
Universe, sure.
We haven't even investigated our solar system. We literally have life. We have machines seeing if there were signs of previous life on Mars because we don't know. And then we have these moons of Jupiter that we're thinking look like they could, maybe not, that we're going to be checking on too. We literally don't. And so you're sitting in there and going, it's like a weird thing where you're like, your only defense is either going to, or you could just give it up and live in the I don't know in an agnostic atheist position. Or you can live in this gap that's going to shrink. And every time it shrinks, go, the problem isn't me. It's not going to, at some point it's going to stop shrinking and my God will be left. You're out of town with that, William.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the layman's dilemma, there's so much, you could fill libraries with stuff I don't know. So, but I was we started a book club, the Atheist Christian Book Club, 6 years ago.
But you also
We
have access to
interviewed
a library. You know what I mean? Like yes, you could fill libraries with anything. All of us don't know, but anything that you don't know that you'd like to go find out that is currently discovered knowledge, you keep making points that are against your own. Let's go to that library. And here's the shelf of all the things you do know. And then there's the many shelves of the things you don't know. My library will have that too. And you have basically said, your defense here is all of those other books come to the same conclusion. God. That's bananas. B-A-N-A-N-E-S.
Well, obviously there's defeaters for the existence of God, the problem of evil, so forth. But
I'm never compelled by moral arguments about God. I don't think they're good for our side of the other. If you're going to make it specific about Yahweh and what the claims in the Bible are, but whether a God exists has nothing to do with whether or not we would consider him evil.
Well, no, I agree 100% there. The morality never was compelling to me because you can just have the group morality, collective, community.
But if you're going to come here and tell me the Mormon God's a good dude, I'll challenge that shit.
Well, that's kind of easily falsified with DNA in the America's no Jewish DNA. So, but it's just terribly complex. But because I'm
surprised you value falsifiable claims, man. Honestly, you keep saying things that it's just like, it's only been 2 weeks. And I feel like you keep saying that as a defense of like, it's only been 2 weeks. Let's see how much better I get at bullshitting myself a month from now. William, I just,
hey, maybe.
I'm not mad. Your mother and I are just disappointed.
Tell me about it. But, I have to, it's like most people can just be agnostic. I took a firm atheistic position. When I speak at seminaries and churches, I was the atheist against the Christians. So, when I've got to make a decision. Agnostic just is not very satisfying to people. And I do believe there's enough evidence. It's not going to be like 90-10 or what. It's kind of just, the preponderance of the evidence seems to point to God. It's that simple for me.
Well, yeah, but so William, it seems to me like this preponderance of evidence for God has only, at least in this conversation, has only come in the form of gaps in our knowledge that you personally can't explain. So therefore you count that as evidence for God, which isn't how shit works. But I mean, that's just how it's come across to us. I mean, if you've got a more concrete claim for evidence or something like that proves you're God, then feel free. So I just simply don't know what.
Give me one characteristic of your God we could investigate. A single one.
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question because now, like I said, when you take this step, then you got, is it a personal God? Have you had God? I did ask God if he could personally reveal himself to me in a personal way. And he did say,
William.
Did say that when you get
stop listening to the comments. My ego's not as big as the commenters go. I don't need a long explanation about how great the question was. I already gave myself the compliment. If you could just answer it. Sorry?
God said, when you get the subscribers that on the Jimmy Snow has, then I'll reveal myself to you. Okay.
Okay, now if you could give me a single characteristic we could investigate, we will be off to the races.
I think God has transcended human history, or the history of the universe for that matter.
Would that be the characteristic we could investigate?
Well, 380,000 years after the Big Bang, we had electrons and photons actually coming together to form atoms, attracting each other. I think God's
so now,
then this leap.
How does that factor into?
William, I know how to make the best 3-cheese pizza. First thing you want to do is find a cat. It's unrelated to making the pizza, but so is what you just said. I asked for a thing we could investigate something about, and you just went, pizza is cat.
What I'm saying, when I made this commitment, people go, well, wait, is it a tinkering God? Does God come in and get life off the ground? Because we have RNA that can auto-catalyze to form multicellular life. And so we can get close to a cell, a protocell or whatever, but does God have to come in and really get that first cell, that first prokaryotic cell off the ground? Does he have to step in and get the Cambrian off the ground? Is it a tinkering God? I don't know, guys.
I actually think we have adequate reason to believe none of that is necessary. And it's wild to go like the contributions he'd be making are so minimal, and yet you think the goal is humanity. And so it's like, it's like, did he hit lightning in the right part of the ocean that gave us that first self-replicating molecule that had the potential of all of this? And then luckily I exist because clearly that was God's goal, which at the end of the day is usually what a sort of deistic leaning pantheistic kind of weird God must have gotten in and jump started some stuff thing seems to be, is everybody has this natural sense of they were intentionally made, and your parents didn't even make you intentionally. Even if they wanted to have a kid, they didn't choose which sperm and which egg, but you were the one, despite all the odds that came out of it. So to sit there and go like, yeah, these strange odds of the things that happened and resulted in me, and somewhat egocentrically finding that to be the wonderful conclusion of this, therefore it needed this divine intervention, to me is the height of perhaps human, I don't, maybe it's hubris. I don't even know what to call it, but I think that is what motivates people to go down this path. And it's not one that I'm not saying that I don't have, obviously we all have egos. You even kind of need one to survive. But I think that is what motivates a lot of this. So if you can't give me an actual characteristic of the God that we can investigate, I don't know how to continue, William.
Okay, can I say all powerful?
How would we investigate if God is all powerful?
If he can create 100 billion galaxies with billions of stars.
So how do we investigate that God created 100 billion galaxies? You realize you're using circular reasoning that depends on you beginning with God exists and created the galaxies. I want to investigate God. I would like the demonstration that God created the galaxies.
No, there's no way I can prove that.
Well, then why did you give that as the example? Give me a falsify. What could we investigate? Do you have a single quality of God in your belief that is falsifiable? To mean if it isn't true, one could prove it not true.
Okay, how about God is good, even though we have defeaters like the Permian extinction, the Cambrian, what was that? There's been mass extinction, the KT extinction at 65 million years ago. Why would God...
What does good... We would have to start with what does good mean? And most religious people are going to say whatever God sanctions. So if you're saying it's not whatever God sanctions, then how am I meant to believe that something is maybe good according to a humanistic standard, which is what I hope you would say if you're not going to go with that, and go the all-powerful God, the God who could have stopped the Holocaust, decided to watch instead?
Maybe, God, the Holocaust, the problem of evil is a tough one, guys. And it is.
No, sir, but you don't get to back out on it when you use the term good. So either you need to define good in a way that we can both agree to before we proceed, then present the God, and we need to investigate the goodness of the God, because you're still talking about a hypothetical God. We're not we're not investigating anything. William, I think actually, because we're coming up on 40 minutes. What we need to do here is
a good point.
Go
what
back,
I'm saying, I'm agreeing
watch the call.
God, I'm saying, intervenes to get the Cambrian off the ground, to get the first cell off the ground. But
and you can't demonstrate that either.
Focused on that? Well, I don't understand why you're so
doesn't he
focused on the Cambrian
intervene?
explosion and the when nucleus is like developed and all this other kind of shit. Like, I don't understand why you're focused on that particular section of like human history, especially when you're talking about God being all good. When like you could just go. I'm assuming that you take the Gospels as like history. Like Yahweh raped Mary, so like how can you say God is good when he's fucking raping children out there?
Oh, that's the God of the Bible. That doesn't. You can't blame God for that.
So you're a minimally interventionist, but somewhat interventionist, deistic appealing kind of theist. It sounds like, William. William, at the end of the day, you've made an assertion. Can we at least agree then, William, that civilizations ahead of us, because we'll probably be dead before we find out, if they find out life is abundant, including life that you would see post-Cambrian, is abundant in the universe, they should look back and go, boy, that William jumped the gun and was kind of dumb about it.
Hey, I jumped the gun a lot. So you got a good point.
So don't jump the gun, William. We're at 40 minutes. Go back, watch the call, look at the challenges, try and call in with something concrete we can investigate and quote unquote pull apart, and let's go from there. All right.
Hey, and good luck with your poker career, John. Good luck. I'll see you at the World Series of Poker, hopefully.
Oh, but fuck me with my poker career. I'm just kidding. I don't play poker. All right, bye, William. No, I've played it a few times in my life. I try to deal so I could cheat if I could.
By the way. Okay. All right. Hey, it's been great, guys.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
Bye, William.
Yeah.
I think I've heard from Matt. There's a good scene out here.
Yeah. So I guess maybe I just got confused because I thought that he was arguing for like a Christian or an Abrahamic version of God, but maybe he didn't say that.
No, he didn't. Yeah, at one point he brought up them as examples of bad gods, I think. And at a certain point he said so much that it all flooded together of equally non-falsifiable stuff. Pizza equals cat, guys. Pizza equals cat.
Well, heathens, that's going to be it for today's clip from the line. Again, if you would like to subscribe to the line, their links are in the description. So please go down there and subscribe. And as a reminder, I do host over there at least twice a month on either a Sunday or a Monday. So if you want to see more of me answering questions from callers, please go over to the line and subscribe. Don't forget to stand up and use your voice. Bye, heathens.